Blood trickled from Kaya Jordan's lip as she sprawled on Crescent Liberty Bank's polished floor in Atlanta, security guards pinning her wrists. Customers gawked, whispering thief at the 15-year-old black girl in a faded red jacket, clutching a torn envelope of $10,000. They assumed she'd stolen it, but her bruised face cracked into a smirk. "They'll regret this," she rasped, knowing her father owned the bank. Chaos would follow, reshaping her life forever. What happens when the truth flips their world you upside down? Before we dive in, let us know where you're watching from, and if you stand for justice, hit like and subscribe because tomorrow's episode will leave you speechless. Kaya Jordan stepped through the gleaming glass doors of Crescent Liberty Bank in downtown Atlanta, her sneakers squeaking faintly against the polished granite tiles. The lobby buzzed with the hum of busy tellers and the rustle of crisp dollar bills, a towering space where sunlight poured through floor-to-ceiling windows, glinting off the steel counters. She was 15, wiry and tall for her age, with a faded red jacket hanging loose over her frame and ripped jeans that showed scuffed knees from years of climbing trees and dodging trouble. In her left hand, she gripped a worn manila envelope, its edges frayed from being stuffed with $10,000 in cash. Her dark eyes sparkled with a mix of nerves and pride as she took in the scene, her braided ponytail swaying slightly with each step. This wasn't just a trip to the bank. This was her moment, her first real shot at something big. She'd earned every penny of that money herself, piecing it together over months. $5,000 came from a coding contest she'd won last spring, outsmarting college kids twice her age with a program that streamlined food bank deliveries. The other half was a pile of birthday gifts, mostly 20s and 50s from an uncle who saw her potential, even if they couldn't afford much themselves. Kaya had big plans for it, a tech project maybe, an app to help kids like her learn programming without fancy tutors or gleaming laptops. She'd sketched the idea on napkins late at night, her mind racing with loops and variables, while her mom snored softly in the next room. Today was about planting the seed, depositing the cash into her savings account, a quiet milestone she could build on. She wanted to prove she could stand on her own. No handouts, no shortcuts, just grit and code. The air smelled faintly of lemon polish and ink, and Kaya adjusted her grip on the envelope, feeling its weight against her palm. She joined the line, a snaking trail of people in pressed suits and worn overalls, all clutching checks or withdrawal slips. Above her, a massive digital clock ticked toward noon, its red numbers glowing against the stark white wall. She didn't mind waiting. She'd waited for everything worth having. Her first library card, the hand-me-down computer she'd fixed herself, the scholarship letter that came in a rain-soaked envelope last year. This was no different. She shifted her weight, imagining the teller's nod when she slid the cash across the counter, the satisfying click as it locked into her account. One day, she'd turn this into something real, something that'd make her mom smile and shut up the kids who called her that nerd from the projects. But as she stood there, soaking in the hum of the lobby, a prickle ran up her neck. She glanced around, catching the edges of stairs that didn't quite meet her eyes. A teller with slicked-back hair and a pinstriped vest flicked his gaze over her, then leaned toward his coworker, a woman with crimson lipstick and a pinched frown. Their heads dipped close, voices too low to catch. But Kaya saw the woman's lips curl into something sharp, something dismissive. She tugged her jacket tighter, suddenly aware of how it hung off her shoulders, how her jeans didn't match the polished heels clipping past her. She wasn't like the man in the navy blazer who'd breezed in 10 minutes ago, greeted with a handshake and a "right this way, sir." No one rushed to her. No one smiled. She was invisible, or worse, a smudge they wanted to wipe away. The line inched forward, and Kaya's turn came after 20 minutes, her legs stiff from standing. She stepped up to the counter, facing a man whose name tag read Victor Grayson, manager. He was in his late 40s, broad-shouldered with a jawline carved from stone. His hazel eyes skimmed her from head to toe, lingering on the scuffed toes of her sneakers, the envelope creased from her grip. Kaya squared her shoulders, refusing to shrink under that look, and slid the envelope forward. "I'd like to deposit this into my savings account," she said, her voice steady, clipped with the confidence she'd practiced in her bedroom mirror. Victor didn't touch the envelope. He leaned back in his chair, folding his arms across his chest, a faint smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. $10,000, huh? His tone was slow, dripping with something Kaya couldn't quite name but felt like a shove. Where did a kid like you get that kind of cash? The question landed heavy, and the lobby seemed to quiet around her, a dozen heads turning just enough to listen. Kaya's pulse kicked up, but she kept her face smooth, her eyes locked on his. "I won a coding contest. The rest is birthday money from my family. It's mine." His smirk widened, showing teeth, and he tapped a pen against the counter, the sound of staccato beat in the silence. "Coding contest? Birthday money? That's a nice story." He didn't believe her. She could see it in the way his brows arced, the way he glanced at the teller next to him, a wiry guy with a buzz cut who nodded like they shared a secret. Victor leaned forward, resting his elbows on the counter, his voice dropping low, but loud enough for the nearest customers to catch. "You sure this isn't someone else's money? Maybe you're running an errand for the wrong crowd." Kaya's stomach twisted, heat flooding her cheeks, but she didn't flinch. "It's my money. I've got an account here. Check it." She slid her ID across, a flimsy plastic card with her name and a grainy photo, her proof against his doubt. Victor took it, holding it up to the light like it might be fake, then tossed it back with a flick of his wrist. "We'll see about that," he muttered, typing something into his computer. The screen glowed blue, casting shadows across his face, and Kaya waited, her fingers curling into fists at her sides. She expected questions, maybe a form or two. Not this, not a man with a badge deciding she didn't belong. The buzz-cut teller leaned over, whispering something Kaya couldn't hear, and Victor's eyes narrowed. 10,000 in cash, he said, louder now, drawing more stares that met Kaya's eyes. A lot for someone your age, someone dressed like you. The words stung, sharp and deliberate, and Kaya felt the weight of every gaze in the room, judging her jacket, her braids, her skin. She opened her mouth to argue, but Victor cut her off, standing abruptly. "I think we need security on this one. Can't be too careful." Before she could process the words, two guards loomed behind her, their boots thudding against the floor. One was a hulking man with a shaved head, the other lean, with a scar slicing his cheek. "Step back, miss," the scarred one barked, grabbing her arm. Kaya yanked free, her envelope slipping to the counter. "I'm a customer. I'm not doing anything wrong." Her voice rose, cracking with frustration, but Victor waved a hand, dismissing her like a fly. "Take her to the floor. We'll sort this out." The guards didn't hesitate. The big one seized her shoulders, slamming her down with a force that knocked the breath out of her lungs. Her knees hit the granite, pain jolting up her legs, and the scarred one pinned her wrists, twisting until she gasped. The envelope fluttered to the ground, bills spilling like confetti, and the crowd murmured a mix of shock and smug agreement. "Told you she didn't belong," someone whispered. Victor stood over her, arms crossed, his smirk now a full grin. "Should have known better to try that here," he said, his voice thick with triumph. Kaya's cheek pressed against the cold stone, her lips splitting as it grazed a rough edge, a trickle of blood pooling beneath her. Pain throbbed through her, but anger burned hotter. She fumbled with her free hand, slipping her phone from her pocket, thumbing the record button under her jacket. The red light blinked on, capturing every word, every grunt, every smug chuckle from Victor. She didn't cry out, didn't beg. She glared up at him, her mind racing. They thought they'd won, thought they'd broken her. They were wrong. This was just the beginning, and she'd make sure they paid. The security office of Crescent Liberty Bank smelled like stale coffee and sweat, a cramped box tucked behind the lobby, with flickering fluorescent lights casting jagged shadows across the concrete walls. Kaya Jordan sat on a metal chair, her wrists still raw from the guard's grip, the taste of blood lingering on her split lip. Her faded red jacket hung crooked, one sleeve torn at the seam, and her envelope of $10,000 sat crumpled on the table, its contents recounted twice by a scowling officer in a cheap polyester uniform. The clock on the wall ticked past 1 in the afternoon, each second stretching into a tight coil of fury in her chest. She'd been here an hour, dragged from the lobby floor after Victor Grayson's smug order, her body aching but her mind sharp as a blade. She'd kept her phone hidden, the recording still running, capturing every muttered slur and heavy bootstep. The door swung open, and Victor stepped in, his gray suit pristine despite the chaos he'd unleashed. His hazel eyes glinted with irritation, not remorse, as he leaned against the wall, arms folded tight behind him. The scarred guard from earlier lingered, cracking his knuckles like he hoped for round 2. Kaya didn't flinch. She stared